Greetings, brothers and sisters, comrades and friends, and everyone in between. It's a pretty cheesy opening, isn't it?
A little bit, yeah.
Welcome to the second pilot episode of what we're calling the Evening Moon for now.
Hang on. Can you have a second pilot episode?
Yeah, we can have pilot episode 1 and pilot episode 2. Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I think it's doable. Well, I'm breaking new ground. We're at the avant-garde, Steve.
The avant-garde. I'm not sure. Okay, all right, well.
My name is Ben Cowles, and I'm joined with Steve Sweeney.
Not joined with, by.
Joined with in holy matrimony.
Holy matrimony.
I'm quite tired. It's quite late, so this could be a bit of a rocky.
This is my fault.
Rocky episode.
Yeah, hello, and I'm Steve Sweeney.
And we've called. Well, why don't you tell them this time? Why do we have the Evening Mood working title for this podcast? What's the point of it?
Well, the point of the Evening Moon is both of us are both of us write and work for the Morning Star. Ben is the web editor, and I'm the international editor. And we decided, I'm not sure it's quite accurate, but we decided that Evening Moon was the opposite of Morning Star.
Yeah.
Morning, or it could be night, couldn't it? It would be night, and moon isn't really the opposite of a star.
No,
but it kind of, we thought it's okay. It's okay as a working title. I think we might end up changing it. I'm guessing we will.
Yeah, probably have to choose something a bit more obviously lefty.
Yeah,
but I kind of like it. It's starting to grow on me a little bit, Evening Moon. But that's something that will probably end up changing. I don't think we said this last time, but it's probably worth trying to get this in every podcast that opinions expressed in this are not the opinions of our employer, they're the opinions of ourselves.
Yeah.
In case we go totally off the rails, it's a good safety thing to say.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So we've had some good feedback from the last pilot, so feeling good about this one. Hopefully, goes.
But we
well.
want some more. We want more feedback.
Yeah, we want more feedback. So if you listen to this, share it to your mates. Share it with your mates even. All right, so we're going to be looking at two or three stories today. But actually, before we get into that, Theresa May's government has just suffered the largest parliamentary defeat since at least World War One, possibly ever in British history.
Mm-hmm.
Her Brexit deal was just voted down massively. I think it was 400 and something. Do you remember the number, Steve?
She lost by 230 votes. So I think it was she had 203 votes in favour of her deal. The three of the 203 were three Labour MPs, to their shame.
Utter shame.
Utter shame. And yeah, it's the biggest. But she lost by a margin of 230, which was a spectacular defeat by any. I mean, there was talk in the run up that that Theresa May had won a little bit of support. Nobody expected the deal to pass, but it was really a matter of the margin of the defeat rather than anything. But as we've seen, last night it was rejected by a thumping majority, 230. And as we know, Jeremy Corbyn tabled the vote of no confidence in the government, which will be heard. Well, as we're recording this, it's tomorrow, but by the time you listen to this, it would have happened.
Yeah, we were recording on Tuesday night, and the vote happened a couple of hours ago. So we don't want to talk too much about it because anything that we say could be out of date pretty soon.
Yeah, almost. Yeah.
But how are you feeling about the vote to no, this motion of no confidence? How do you feel? Do you think it's going to work? Do you think they'll be able to do that?
I'm fairly sure that Corbyn knows what. He's been a bit of a master, I think, with this. It's been like a bit of a game of chess because people were putting pressure on him before, saying, "Why haven't you tabled this vote of no, motion of no confidence in the government before?" Well, simply because they didn't have a majority in Parliament, and that's not how the sums didn't add up. So he knows, he will know, what the feeling in the House. I'm fairly sure, and it was just a matter of timing, getting the timing right. After this catastrophic defeat for the government, I think it's probably the right time, and they're clinging on with the support of the DUP in the supply and confidence deal. They're not going to vote, I don't think, in favour of the government, Theresa May's government. I'd be very surprised. I mean, they may do. So I think, there's every opportunity that we could be, by the time you listen to this, we could be getting prepared for a general election.
Which would be fantastic. And speaking of general elections, We went to a demonstration this weekend. So that would have been Saturday, January the something or other. 14th, was it? 12th.
It's a
Saturday the 12th.
That's
of
worse
January.
than me. I normally struggle for dates.
It's the problem with working with a newspaper. You never actually know what day it is.
No.
So yes, this Saturday we both went on a demonstration that was organised by the People's Assembly Against Austerity, who you used to work for.
Mm-hmm.
Steve's just eating his tea right now.
I'm eating my tea at the same time, but yeah, I was a national organiser for the People's Assembly. I'm still a member of the National Committee. And I think Saturday's demonstration was... it's difficult to organise demonstrations in January, traditionally after the Christmas period, but it was an important one because in the middle of the Brexit chaos, in the middle of this attempt to portray Britain as divided between those who voted Remain and those who voted Leave, it's absolutely smashed through that. The notion that that's where the division lies, because people on the demonstration, there were I guess an even balance of people that voted Remain and people that voted Leave, and the real division is actually between the haves and the have-nots, between a Tory government that is heaping further austerity measures on ordinary working people of Britain, and I think that's where the real division is, and that's why the call was right for a general election.
Yeah, and I think that the Labour Party right now, Corbyn's sort of the message that he's been putting out has been brilliant. I think it was last week as well. He delivered a speech somewhere in the Midlands, I can't remember. It's not really important where it was, but what he was saying was, if you live in Tottenham and you voted, you might have voted Remain, but you're working on an insecure contract, you've got debts, life is difficult. But also, if you live in Stoke, you more than likely voted to Leave, but you're in the same situation, you're in insecure work, money's tight, you're in lots of debt. So I think it's a good message to be having this unity, because everything does feel like this total divide in the country.
Yeah,
and it's quite unnecessary, really.
I think, and I think the actually what we saw on Saturday was the working class movement. You had the trade unions, progressive organisations were absolutely united around this demand for a general election. The division was actually when because we spoke about the yellow vests last week. That Saturday's demonstration was led by two people from that movement, two people from the yellow vests who came over from France for the demonstration. They spoke at the rally as well. Eric Simon was one of them. Simon, probably. We did French last week, didn't we? With Macron and Eric Simon. Probably Eric Simon. But the message that he gave to the demonstration was all European countries must join up in this battle against austerity.
Yeah.
So they pitched it very much as that's what it was. It was a movement against austerity, which is similar to what in France. And we discussed the far right's attempt to co-opt that movement last week, and both of us were right in the middle of the far right's attempt, one to co-opt the yellow vest, but also what happened was on Saturday is, and we don't want to give them too much, I don't want to discuss this too much because didn't give them too much credit, but fascist organisations and the far right attacked Saturday's demonstration. So I mean, and I think that underlines that fascism is an anti-working class movement.
Definitely.
Despite the rhetoric that and the things that they say, it's an anti-working class movement, and it proved that on Saturday by attacking the organised masses who are protesting against austerity and calling for a general election. We don't want to go on about them too much and give them too much credence. They were seen off by the movement who blocked them and stopped them from attacking the demonstration. They were a group of violent thugs who came straight from the pub to attack a demonstration. But the overall message, I thought, was a positive one.
Yeah, I thought it was brilliant. And you and I were both stewards, and I was walking in. They called it the box. I think that before I go on about that, I think Tom and Ramona from the People's Assembly and everyone else involved, Katerina and etc. Can't think of anyone else's name. they did an amazing job. And I think there was about 2,000 or 3,000 people at this march.
Yeah, maybe more. I don't know, but I mean, also the organisers as well, the sort of the volunteers and the teams of people that are out, helping out with the placard making, the people that are rallying people, the leafleting. There's a lot of effort that goes into these, to getting these people, getting a good turnout on it. They don't happen by magic. And I know, having been involved in kind of the organising before, and it's there's a lot of work that goes into it. But I think paying tribute to them is absolutely absolutely essential. I think the point is now the demonstration happened, made the right call for a general election. That needs to be pressed. I think that's the thing, is what happens next. And I think there's local demonstrations and other activities planned for this Saturday, the 19th. And hopefully
Skills there with the date.
Yeah, I was quite impressed with myself, seeing as I'm quite well known for never knowing the day or the dates. It's quite often, I'm quite often shouting across the Morning Star newsroom, asking what day or date it is. But 19th. So I think there's stuff happening on Saturday, and we're coming into a very interesting political period, I think.
Yeah, I think it's there's that curse. Apparently it's a Chinese curse, but I think it's misattributed. But there's this phrase that goes along the lines of "May you live in interesting times," which is both like a blessing and a curse. And I think we're definitely living through that. It'll be a time to tell, if we ever have grandchildren, it'll be a time to tell them about, won't it?
It will be. It will be, and we're moving into a very serious political. The political landscape is changing, and we could. Who would have thought this maybe 3 or 4 years ago? But we could end up with a socialist prime minister and a socialist government, and we could end up with that very, very soon. So, I mean, that would transform society for many, many people in Britain. Well, we shall see what happens.
We shall see. Yeah,
I'm sure we'll be coming back to this next week, no doubt.
Yeah, probably, no doubt.
Yeah.
So now would be a good time for a jingle, if we had one. Do you want to sing a little tune?
No, I think it's a really bad idea.
What, it's a bad idea? It is a really bad idea, but it'd be nice to have, some sort of... So, do you think we should have, a serious kind of jingle or a light-hearted one? Like a BBC News?
I think we need a serious jingle because, we're talking about some serious stuff.
Yeah.
And it would be really inappropriate to have, a silly jingle. Yeah. Yeah, and I'd probably go for a very non-committal jingle.
A non-committal jingle, okay.
There's not too serious and dark, but is also not too light-hearted.
Yeah, good point. Well, let's move on to the next story.
Yeah.
The next story is one that you wrote today, and which will be in the paper on Wednesday, January the 16th.
Well done.
Thank you. I used a computer for that one. So the title of the piece online at the moment is "Unions and Progressives Refuse to be Intimidated by the Turkish State." Why don't you tell us about that story, Steve?
Okay, so I mean, this is an exclusive story to the Morning Star, as most of our readers will know. Maybe, I hope. Turkey is one of my specialist.
You might say you're obsessed with it, if you're being unkind.
And people frequently are unkind. In fact, today in the newsroom it was suggested that I pay a 10p fine every time I mention Turkey that's non-work related. But that's another story.
As the international editor, you should be okay to mention Turkey quite a lot.
Yeah, but I do seemingly talk about it more often than maybe some people like. Anyway, so getting back to the issue. So on tomorrow's front page, we have this story where. And this comes from a meeting that was organised tonight in City Hall, which is the home of the London Mayor's office, Sadiq Khan. And I was contacted over the weekend by a GLA member for...
So the Greater London Assembly?
Yes, for City and East. So I should have said that, actually, yes. And he explained to me that we should, I guess, use the terms alleged and claimed throughout this, just to make sure that we're covered.
Yeah.
He claimed that the mayor's office had been contacted by the Turkish embassy. Well, that claim is true, because I've seen the letter from the Turkish embassy. So the Turkish embassy had written to Sadiq Khan, and also they'd written to 14 trade unions asking them to withdraw their support for tonight's meeting, which was around freedom for Abdullah Öcalan, who I ought to explain who he is for people that don't know. Abdullah Öcalan is the leader of the Kurdistan Workers' Party, known as the PKK. That organisation is deemed a terrorist organisation by Turkey, unsurprisingly, Britain, the EU, and a number of other countries. He's been in prison. He was originally sentenced to death. However, that was commuted because Turkey was trying to become an accession country to the European Union, and so he's now in life in prison. He's on Imrali Island, which is an island. He's the only prisoner there, and so there has been a campaign for his release and for his freedom. He was part of peace negotiations with the Turkish state up until 2015. But pro-Kurdish groups and supporters want him to be released and say that his release is central to solving Turkey's so-called Kurdish question. And that's probably a whole other story about that, but that's the essence of it. So this meeting tonight was called by the trade union campaign in Britain, the Freedom for Öcalan campaign, which was initiated by GMB and Unite in Parliament in what year is it now?
We're now in 2019.
2019. So it
2 weeks in.
Yeah. So that was launched in Parliament a few years ago, and it has been gaining traction since, with more unions affiliating to the campaign. It was the international campaign at Durham Miners Gala this year, so it's been getting quite a high profile, which is why the unions say why they're being lent on essentially. So there was a number of things happened. They were pressured to pull the plug on this meeting, and they said no.
By the Turkish state, right?
By the Turkish state. So the Turkish state, so the trade unions have basically wrote back, and I spoke to some of their international officers today, and they said they were refusing to be intimidated by the Turkish state in the face of this sort of aggressive attempt to and they said it's to silence solidarity and to silence support for the Kurdish movement and for progressive organisations inside Turkey. So Unmesh Desai, who's the GLA member, said that who was hosting the event, he's the chair of Justice for Kurdistan, and he explained that not only when he said no, we're not going to pull the meeting, that he was then told that by the mayor's office, someone in the mayor's office, that he had made this allegation that somebody from that office said that he was being investigated for anti-terrorism activities. A breach of anti-terror legislation for hosting the meeting. More worryingly, he claimed that somebody in the mayor's office said late on Friday that they wanted a list of names of people that are attending that meeting. Now that's quite chilling.
It's pretty sinister, isn't it?
It's incredibly sinister because if the Turkish state was to get hold of that list, these are people who, many of whom would have fled Turkey for that, because they've been political persecution by the Turkish state, so they've fled that. And this is very serious kind of stuff. I mean, we're talking people that would have gone to prison, that would have been tortured, that maybe would have been disappeared. Some very, very serious things that are happening to people that would have been attending that meeting. So giving that list over is, as Unmesh said, I mean, it's, there's no way they were going to do that. He couldn't have that on his conscience that, some of these people travel back to Turkey and then they're arrested and whatever. But this is an attack on freedom of speech. It's an attack on the right, the trade union movement, who are campaigning for the release of for Öcalan's release. But the timing is interesting. Now, this is, there have been meetings before about this particular issue. There's been meetings in Parliament. Like I said, the launch of the campaign was in Parliament. I've been at countless meetings in Parliament and across the country. But this comes at a time when Turkey is threatening to invade Manbij. I think we've spoken about this, I think briefly last week, but it's threatening an invasion of Manbij. It's occupying Afrin. So the trade unions have said, well, of course these are absolutely linked. That it's linked to this forthcoming invasion, but it's also linked to the growing support and solidarity for the campaign. They're under the Turkish state are under big pressure. They've just allowed Abdullah Öcalan to have his first visit by anybody since 2016.
That's just horrible. I was going to say incredible, but that's definitely the wrong word. It's terrible.
Yeah, and it's in breach of international law. I mean, that's the other thing. So they finally let his brother visit him on on Saturday, but the reason they've done that is because there is currently a hunger strike from Kurdish and Kurdish MP, led by a Kurdish MP, Leyla Guven, who is now, by the time this goes out, today was her 69th day on hunger strike, and she's in a critical condition, but there have been people going on hunger strike in solidarity with her, not just in Turkey, but also across Europe, in Britain. There's somebody a Kurdish activist who's been on hunger strike in Wales for a very long time. So there's been hunger strikes for a long time in Turkey, as there have been during the hunger strikes in Ireland, particularly in 1981 in Long Kesh. So Sinn Féin have been very much behind supporting the hunger strikes. A delegation went to meet Leyla Guven on Saturday, and they were blocked, led by Sinn Féin, and they were blocked from seeing her. So all of these things are putting quite a lot of pressure on the Turkish state. The ironic thing about this is that the Turkish state have tried to interfere in the political process here. They've demanded the trade unions withdraw their support for the Freedom for Öcalan campaign. They demanded they cancel this meeting. All it's done is strengthened their resolve. And I spoke to Simon Dubbins, the international director from the Unite Union, and he said, one, that they're not going to be intimidated by the Turkish state and they're not going to back down. But he said now, they're more united than ever. I've just had a report in whilst since we came on air to say that that the meeting was really well attended. There was more than 100 people, some great speeches, and more than 100 people in attendance at the meeting. That's
good to know. Yeah,
it's great to know, because there's, that's a sign really of how the Turkish intervention's backfired.
Turkey is if you've ever read the Morning Star, you'll know that it's in a pretty shit state, and it's got a terrible government, and its government was in a bit of a dick swinging competition with Donald Trump earlier this week as well. Trump said that he would economically devastate the country, and Turkey essentially replied saying, we're not scared, bring it on. But they also had a go at Trump for discussing policies on Twitter, which is great for journalists and everyone else in the world, but for them it just makes them look ridiculous.
I mean, Trump says a lot of things, but I mean, it's important to stress at the same time that he said he would devastate Turkey economically if he attacked the Kurds. He also told the Kurds, don't do anything to provoke Turkey. So I mean, he's sort of playing both hands at the same time. And let's be realistic. The US and Turkey are hand in hand together. The US is backing Turkey. Turkey's NATO's second largest army. So the US needs Turkey as an ally in the region. That's why Turkey. That's why the US has withdrawn from Syria, or say they're withdrawing from Syria. It's not quite as Donald Trump is making it out to be. Not quite as straightforward as that. But of course, they realise they've lost in their aim of regime change. They've lost in Syria. They have to go. This is, we said last week, this is a major defeat. But they're in doing that, they're allowing Turkey to enter the arena with their allies in the Free Syrian Army, which I think is indicative really of the US modus operandi, and it's how they have no interest in defending or supporting the Kurds. I don't think people really are under any illusions about that. I think that's very clear. So there's this coordinated attempt by Turkey to silence dissent and to silence opposition, to silence solidarity, and the solidarity movement spreads beyond its borders. We've seen it not just now we're seeing it in Britain with attempts to silence the trade union movement. We've seen it in many other countries. We've seen it particularly in Germany, where They banned the flags supporting the People's Protection Units in Syria, but this was an attack on the Kurdish movement, as well. And they put pressure on governments to do their dirty work for them. Now they've put pressure on Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London's office, to do their dirty work for them. And he's seems, according to what we've heard from Ummesh, he seems to have been sort of carrying out their requests to cancel the meeting and such like, and putting pressure on activists. You might have to be careful about how we phrase that. I think. But I did contact the mayor's office today for and I put those allegations to them, and they didn't respond to any of them. All they came back was they didn't answer any of the questions that I asked them about the request for a list of attendees, about the investigations into Unmesh for breaches of terrorist legislation, and calls to scrap the meeting. They didn't answer any of those allegations. When I put them, what they came back with, they said we didn't organise the meeting. It's a private function organised by a member of the London Assembly. That was it. So yeah, but it looks like it backfired anyway.
Well, this is a story that we'll keep an eye on as well. I'm sure you'll keep track of this.
Absolutely.
We are on 30 minutes.
That's pretty good.
That's all right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Last time, a few people that listened to it, some of the feedback was that it was long. But I think one of the things that you do with a podcast, that I do anyway, is listen to it, pause it, come back to it later on, and carry on.
Yeah.
So we could talk about another story. We haven't got on the agenda. How do you feel about that?
Let's do it. Go for it.
A story that I was writing today, which will be in Wednesday's paper, was the teachers in the United States. There was a huge strike in Los Angeles this week, on Monday this week, which is good to see. So I always find it as someone who's half American, always makes me feel good when I see labour struggles going on in the US and being massively supported. I think around 30,000 teachers were on strike in Los Angeles, in the city of Los Angeles, on Monday, and they were on strike. They were demanding. I'm trying to sound official here. I just need to relax.
Just I'll ask you because I saw some photographs and some video footage, and it looked incredible. I mean, they looked like they blocked major roads in Los Angeles. This is quite sort of, I think, worthy of comment. Tell us a little bit about what happened, because what's the dispute about?
The dispute is about the teachers are. Well, what's interesting is because a lot of the media is trying to frame this as a dispute over pay, which it is, but it's not. That's not the only issue. One of the issues that they are asking the union, the teachers' union is called the United Teachers of Los Angeles, or UTLA. Their union is asking for a 6.5% pay rise, but they're not just asking for that. They're asking that the Los Angeles County School District uses its £1.8 billion surplus, which is about £1.4 billion, to properly fund schools, to halt privatisation, to ensure that there are more libraries, counsellors and nurses on school campuses. And one of the big things that they are talking about, the union talk about, is decreasing class sizes and having fewer exams for the students.
Right, that's so they're putting a whole raft. Basically, it's these fundamental changes to the education system in America, by the sound of it, that they're calling for. So what happened then? So they balloted for strike action, and
they balloted for strike action last year.
Yeah,
and they balloted for strike action last year, and the union was in talks with the Los Angeles County School District on last Friday, and the district. Let's just say the city. It's much easier to say than Los Angeles County School District. The city came back to them with an offer of 6% pay rise, but they didn't address the class sizes, or they didn't address privatisation or the other demands that the union was making, and so the teachers voted to go on strike.
This is an interesting point, actually, and I want to come, what you think about this, because often when people go on strike, there's a barrage of protests from, led by the right-wing media that try and portray teachers, we've seen it with public sector workers here, as greedy and making out that the dispute is over pay. Now, what you've just said is that they were offered a 6% pay rise, which isn't far off what they were demanding in terms of their financial remuneration. But they've actually said, well, you haven't addressed any of the other issues that are affecting pupils. So it seems to me that this is about more than, it's not about teachers' money and greedy teachers, which is how we see it often portrayed.
I know, when people that work in the London Underground go on strike, they're always shown as that the media portray them as greedy people, and I saw a lot of that particularly when I was looking at US media. They were focused more on the teachers being greedy. But one thing I didn't mention is one of the other reasons why they rejected the pay claim is it was tied to cuts in healthcare provision for the teachers as well. So they weren't standing for that. And what was interesting is that while the teachers were on strike, the city organised around 2,000 administrators. They put 2,000 city administrators, so administrators who work for the Los Angeles school district, county, or whatever that is, to go and work in the schools. And they got 400 substitute teachers, or scabs, to go and work in the schools. And what was really interesting is, if you look at the UTLA's Twitter feed, they're just they're sharing all this stuff and all this support from celebrities in the US and lots of kids that are affected by it. Other trade unions in the US are all supporting this teacher strike. It's fantastic to see. And I'm just going to read this quote from Alex Caputo. Do you reckon that's how you say his name? Caputo?
Yeah, I think so.
He is the president of the UTLA, and he said this to the striking teachers on Monday. And what was quite striking, actually, while he was saying this, is if you look at the pictures, all the teachers are in rain maxes. He was chucking it down. And I think that's kind of rare in Los Angeles. Anyway, what he said is, I want to speak to the billionaires. We're not going the way of New Orleans, where you privatise and closed every single public school in that city. Public education is not your plaything. It belongs to the people of LA.
That's a really good quote, isn't it?
It is
really good. That kind of sums it up, really, doesn't it? That it's the billionaires that are ruining public services. We're seeing it here in the US, of course. In Britain, they're doing exactly the same thing with the NHS. I know the teaching unions are very concerned about creeping privatisation and marketisation of education here. So, it seems that this is fundamental to that global fight against neoliberalism, really, which sees the cost of everything but the value of nothing. And here we are. What more important is there than children's education? I mean, this is one of the one of the most sort of fundamental things in society, and they're trying to how do you square that with private privatisation and make which everything is designed to make a profit.
And profit doesn't care for education, does it? It cares for profit.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
Another angle that I saw a lot of the other newspapers and other media was taking was that the students, because a lot of the students, there's 640,000 students across 900 schools that were affected by the strike. And, a lot of the media were talking about the parents being, they focused on parents who were worried that their students weren't learning. But like I said earlier, the UTLA the strike organised by the UTLA was supported by the students. You see that on social media. And there was one girl who was called, her name's Mia Medina, I think, and she's a student at John F. Kennedy High School, somewhere in Los Angeles. And she was telling reporters that she was sacked from her job. If you can call it a job, I don't know. She referred to it as a job. She's an announcer in the school. She comes on the tannoy. And gives announcements to the school in the morning. And she said one morning this week, she said, teachers, we support you. And after the announcement in the morning, the principal came up to her and said, who told you to say that? And she said, no one told me to say it. We support the teachers, that's why I wanted to say it. And he told her, I don't want you to do the morning announcements anymore. And so, she's lost this thing. She's been, kicked off this little job that she had. That sounds a bit patronising. But yeah, I mean, it's good to see such a support for, this kind of thing in the US.
I think, and I think you often see that with, in terms of industrial disputes with teachers, that I've heard it so many times here as well. you're taking strike action, you're cheating our children out of an education. Well, I don't remember them saying the same thing during the royal weddings when people were. Well, I think one of them had a public holiday.
Yeah.
And there wasn't complaints about about that. But I always think what better lesson can children learn than solidarity and standing up against. That's the ultimate thing of standing up against bullies, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
And standing up against standing up for yourself. I think it's a really important lesson. And when at my daughter's school, they've taken strike action, and I've always been quite pleased and supportive of the teachers in their action, and I know a lot of parents are too. Actually, it's just the right wing media try and portray it as something different because. That's it's in their class interest to do that. But this is I like this. This is really good. I just imagine that booming around the school.
Teachers, we support you. Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah, so that was a nice little story. I'm quite happy about that. I think the strike's going to continue. The city and the teachers. The teachers are struggling to get the city to listen to their demands and take them seriously. I think, but hopefully with a good support. They'll be able to get they'll get at least some of their demands.
Yeah. All power to the teachers.
Exactly.
Brilliant.
Solidarity. Great. Now we should have a jingle here before we go into the silly questions. Well, it's not a silly question section. It's a section where we want people who listen to the podcast to send us questions that can either be ridiculous or deep and meaningful.
Yeah.
So last week I asked you about
my favourite pickle.
So this time, because no one wrote us with a question or we didn't ask anyone to do it, you can provide a question this week on the spot. Go.
Well, I think along the lines of the favourite pickle, one of the always a hot topic at Morningstar Towers. I've got another question after this, right? But this one is a hot topic at Morningstar Towers quite often, which is what is your favourite biscuit?
Ooh, that's a good question. I like a
kind of mumsney though, isn't it?
It's a bit mumsney, but
because they ask. That's the question they ask, isn't it?
Is it? They ask you what's your favourite biscuit?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to answer. See, you've asked me. I'm going to ask. Seeing as you've asked me, I'm going to answer. My favourite biscuit is kind of like where it's kind of a hobnob, but there's like chocolate on the bottom. So the top of the biscuit is kind of rough and hobnobby.
Isn't that just called a chocolate hobnob?
Possibly. And the bottom bit is coated in chocolate. It's fucking delicious.
That's a chocolate hobnob.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying the brand. I'm not advertising for them, man.
You did. You said it's like a hobnob with chocolate on it, which is a chocolate hobnob. One of the other things, right, we were talking about, I think we were going to the pub last week, and you were teaching somebody I think I was teaching somebody some British phrases.
Yeah.
And I came out with the phrase "cool as fuck."
Right? Oh yeah.
So "cool as fuck," immortalised by the Inspiral Carpets. Those of a certain age will know what I'm talking about.
Really old people.
Not really old people. I'm not old.
Not that old.
Not that old. No. Anyway, but the "cool as fuck" t-shirts. From the Inspiral Carpets. So that was the phrase "cool as fuck." Ben seemed to think that there was another phrase called "cool as shit."
Cool as shit is a legitimate phrase.
It is not. I've never heard anyone say "cool as shit." Shit isn't cool.
Maybe maybe people who say "cool as shit" are significantly younger than you.
You can say "shit hot."
You can say "shit hot," yeah,
but not "cool as shit."
You can definitely say "cool as shit."
You can't. We're going to put this to you, listeners. Can you say, and have you ever said at any point in your life when describing something that is really, really cool? Have you ever said that is cool as shit? I don't think anybody I know is going to come back. Anybody we know, anybody in the Twitter sphere, anybody on Facebook, anybody that listens to this is never going to have said cool as shit.
I think what we should do,
or cool as piss. That was the other thing.
Cool as piss. I like swearing, and I like to switch up the swear words. So if you say, a lot of people say, holy fuck or something. I quite like to say holy piss. Or holy twat. Or something like that. I like, mixing up your swear words. It's fun. It's a good hobby.
Cool as piss is not a phrase, though.
Okay, well, aside from that, what we should do is people should tweet at us, if anyone ever listens to this and ever does it, they should tweet at us, and either just tweet us with hashtag cool as fuck or hashtag cool as shit.
Yes.
And whoever does the most, then You know,
We'll announce. Yes, that's a really good idea. Hashtag cool as fuck. Hashtag cool as shit. We will announce next week which of those has won. Although I might as well announce it now. It will definitely be cool as fuck.
Well, probably no one's going to listen to this. So, and I might be able to get people to tweet at us. Cool as shit.
In other words, what? You might rely on cheating.
Yeah, I might cheat.
No, I don't think so.
Right, well, let's wrap this car crash up. If people want to find you, Stephen Sweeney, where can they find you on social media?
On social media, you can find me on my Twitter account, which is @SweeneySteve, and that's SWEENEY, and then Steve is STEVE, just in case.
Not STEPH.
That's Steph.
Yeah, I can't spell either. And if you want to find me for some reason, you can find me on Twitter at Cowles, just COWLESZ.
Because he thinks he's cool as fuck.
Yeah, that's it for this week's show. We should hopefully be back next week with another pilot episode or the inaugural episode.
I'm a bit confused. How many pilot episodes can we do?
We could do as many pilot episodes forever. If we just keep doing pilot episodes, if people complain it's shit, you can always just say, yeah, it's a pilot. Then we'll get real.
Okay.
Cool?
Cool as fuck.
All right. Cheers. See ya.